Most people believe that managing blood sugar comes down to two things: cutting carbohydrates and counting calories. But what if one of the most overlooked tools for controlling glucose levels isn't found in your kitchen at all? What if it's sitting quietly in the back of your legs, almost completely ignored by mainstream health advice? That's exactly where we're starting today, because the truth about blood sugar control is far more interesting and far more practical than most people realize. Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. David Aid, and on this channel we focus on practical, evidence-informed strategies for healthy aging, disease prevention, and long-term wellness. Today we're talking about three lifestyle factors that influence blood sugar regulation in ways that go far beyond the usual eat less sugar advice. If you or someone you love is managing elevated blood sugar, prediabetes, or type 2 diabetes, what you're about to hear may reshape how you think about daily habits. Stay with me until the end because the third point is the one most people have never even heard of. Let's start with something almost everyone has been told, but very few people have been told correctly. Point 1. The stress-sugar connection. If you've ever tried to just eat less sugar and found it nearly impossible to sustain, you are not lacking willpower. There's a physiological reason cutting sugar feels so much harder for some people than others, and it has very little to do with self-control. When the body experiences ongoing psychological stress, it releases cortisol, a hormone designed to help us respond to short-term threats. In small doses, over short periods, cortisol is helpful. The problem is that modern life rarely offers a clear endpoint to stress. Work pressure, financial worry, relationship strain, and constant digital stimulation can keep cortisol elevated for weeks or months at a time. Chronically elevated cortisol does two things that matter enormously for blood sugar. It raises blood glucose directly by signaling the liver to release stored glucose into the bloodstream, and it intensifies cravings for quick energy foods, particularly sugar and refined carbohydrates. So when someone says, "I just can't stop craving sweets," what's often happening underneath is a stress response asking the body for fast fuel. This is why willpower-based approaches to sugar reduction so often fail. You're not fighting a habit, you're fighting a hormonal signal. This is where most health advice stops. But here's what most people don't realize. The goal isn't to eliminate stress from your life entirely. That's not realistic for almost anyone. The goal is to shorten how long your body stays in that stressed state. This is where practices like slow, controlled breathing and short daily meditation sessions become genuinely useful, not as a vague wellness suggestion, but as a targeted intervention. Slow diaphragmatic breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the body's natural stand-down signal. It tells your nervous system that the perceived threat has passed, which in turn allows cortisol levels to come back down more quickly. You don't need to become a meditation expert to benefit from this. Something as simple as 5 minutes of slow breathing in the morning, or a short guided session before bed, can measurably shorten the duration of your body's stress response over time. Give it a genuine trial of about 8 weeks. Not because there's anything magical about that number, but because hormonal and behavioral patterns generally need consistent repetition before the benefits become noticeable and self-reinforcing. Have you noticed your own sugar cravings tend to spike during particularly stressful weeks? Let me know in the comments, because this pattern is incredibly common, and recognizing it is often the first step toward breaking it. There's also a smaller, more specific detail worth mentioning here: cinnamon, specifically Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes called true cinnamon. Some research suggests that compounds in cinnamon may have a modest supportive effect on insulin sensitivity, though the evidence is still considered preliminary and shouldn't be treated as a primary treatment strategy. What's more clinically relevant is the distinction between Ceylon cinnamon and the more common cassia cinnamon found in most grocery stores. Cassia cinnamon naturally contains higher levels of a compound called coumarin, which, when consumed in large amounts over long periods, has been associated with potential liver strain. Ceylon cinnamon contains only trace amounts of coumarin, making it the safer option if you intend to use cinnamon regularly, such as adding a small amount to tea or warm water. This isn't a treatment on its own, but it's a small, low-risk addition that pairs well with the bigger lifestyle changes we're discussing today. Point 2. Meal timing and insulin sensitivity. Now let's talk about something that surprises a lot of people because it goes against the conventional advice many of us grew up with. Eating smaller meals more frequently throughout the day isn't necessarily better for blood sugar control. In some cases, it can work against you. Here's the physiology behind it. Every time you eat, your pancreas releases insulin to help shuttle glucose out of the bloodstream and into your cells. If you're eating 6 small meals or constantly snacking throughout the day, you're asking your pancreas to release insulin again and again, almost continuously. Over time, this repeated demand can contribute to a state where cells become less responsive to insulin's signal, a condition known as insulin resistance, which sits at the core of type 2 diabetes. This next finding may surprise you. Simply reducing the number of times you eat in a day, without necessarily changing what you eat, can meaningfully improve insulin sensitivity for many people. Structuring your day around 2 or 3 defined meals, with no snacking in between, gives your body extended windows where insulin levels can fall and stay low. During these low insulin windows, your cells essentially get a chance to reset their sensitivity to insulin's signal. If this is a new approach for you, the transition doesn't need to be dramatic. Start by eating 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, with nothing in between, and aim to finish your last meal by early evening, ideally 6 to 7 o'clock, rather than late at night. This single change, eating 3 structured meals without snacking, is one of the most underrated tools in blood sugar management. Many people notice meaningful improvements in energy stability and reduced sugar cravings within just a few weeks. Once that feels sustainable, and only if it feels right for your body and your medical situation, some people choose to consolidate further into 2 meals a day, an earlier lunch, and an earlier dinner. This isn't necessary for everyone, and it's not something to approach without first talking to your physician, particularly if you take medication that affects blood sugar, since meal timing changes can affect medication dosing needs. If you're finding this information helpful and want more evidence-based health insights, don't forget to subscribe and join our growing community. What's interesting is that this same principle, fewer, more clearly defined eating windows, has shown benefits beyond blood sugar. Reduced insulin spikes are associated with lower inflammation markers throughout the body, and some research points to potential benefits for prostate health in men, likely connected to the same underlying hormonal pathways. The story becomes even more interesting when you consider that this single habit change touches multiple systems in the body at once, rather than targeting just one symptom. Point 3. The calf muscle connection. Almost no one talks about. This is the part of today's video I mentioned at the beginning, and it's genuinely one of the most underappreciated tools in blood sugar management. Your calf muscles are part of a category of skeletal muscle that plays an outsized role in glucose regulation simply because of how much glucose they're capable of storing and using. When you contract a muscle, whether through walking, standing calf raises, or general movement, that muscle pulls glucose out of the bloodstream to use as fuel, largely independent of insulin. This is a completely separate pathway from the insulin-driven glucose uptake we typically focus on, which means it works even in people whose insulin sensitivity has already been compromised. What researchers discovered through studying muscle physiology is that this contraction-driven glucose uptake mechanism activates almost immediately once a muscle begins working, and it can remain elevated for a period of time after the activity stops. This is part of the reason why even brief movement breaks throughout the day, like a set of standing calf raises every hour, can have a measurable effect on blood sugar trends over time, separate from the benefits of a single dedicated workout. This doesn't mean a few calf raises replace structured exercise or medical treatment. It means movement, especially of large, frequently used muscle groups like the calves and thighs, is a genuinely powerful and underused lever, one that costs nothing and can be done almost anywhere. At your desk, in a waiting room, or while brushing your teeth. Beyond calf raises specifically, any form of regular movement, whether that's walking, resistance training, swimming, or yoga, contributes to the same underlying benefit. Muscles that are used regularly become more efficient at managing glucose, even outside of active exercise sessions. This is sometimes called the afterburn effect on glucose handling, and it's one of the clearest examples in medicine of how movement functions almost like medicine itself, supporting not just blood sugar but cardiovascular health, bone density, and stress reduction simultaneously. Have you tried incorporating short movement breaks into your day? What has your experience been? This is exactly the kind of small, sustainable change that tends to compound over months, even when it doesn't feel dramatic in the moment. Let's bring these three areas together into something practical you can start using today. First, address the stress-sugar cycle directly, not by trying to eliminate stress, but by giving your nervous system regular opportunities to downshift. A short daily breathing practice, 5 to 10 minutes consistently, is more valuable than an occasional hour-long session. If you choose to incorporate cinnamon as a small addition to your routine, opt for Ceylon cinnamon specifically and treat it as a minor supportive habit rather than a primary strategy. Second, look honestly at your eating pattern. If you're snacking frequently throughout the day, consider transitioning toward 3 structured meals with a clearly defined eating window that ends in the early evening. Make this change gradually and always in coordination with your physician if you're on blood sugar medication, since your dosing needs may shift as your eating pattern changes. Third, build small movement habits into your day that specifically engage your calf muscles and major lower body muscle groups. This can be as simple as a few minutes of calf raises during phone calls, taking stairs when available, or parking slightly farther away to add walking distance. None of these require a gym membership or specialized equipment. Stepping back from the specifics, what ties all three of these strategies together is a broader principle in preventive medicine. Blood sugar regulation isn't determined by any single dramatic intervention. It's shaped by the accumulation of consistent, modest daily choices, stress management, eating structure, and movement repeated over months and years. This matters enormously for long-term health because elevated blood sugar over time is connected to a wide range of downstream concerns, including cardiovascular health, kidney function, vision, and nerve health. The encouraging part of the research in this area is that the same foundational habits that support healthy blood sugar also tend to support healthy aging more broadly: reduced inflammation, better cardiovascular resilience, improved energy, and greater independence as we get older. To summarize what we've covered, chronic stress drives both elevated blood sugar and sugar cravings, and brief, consistent breathing or meditation practices can help shorten the body's stress response over time. Reducing meal frequency and avoiding late-night eating can improve insulin sensitivity for many people, though this should be approached gradually and in coordination with your doctor. And regular movement, particularly of the calf muscles and other large lower body muscle groups, activates a glucose uptake pathway that works independently of insulin, making it a valuable tool even for people with existing insulin resistance. None of these strategies are flashy. There's no dramatic before and after transformation promised here, and that's intentional because sustainable health change rarely looks dramatic in the moment. It looks like a slightly calmer nervous system, a slightly more structured eating day, and a body that moves a little more often than it used to. Over months, these small shifts tend to add up to something genuinely meaningful. As always, if you're managing diabetes, prediabetes, or any blood sugar concern, these strategies are meant to complement, not replace, guidance from your healthcare provider. Work with your doctor or a qualified specialist to tailor any of these approaches to your specific medical situation. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments section. I always enjoy seeing how far this community reaches. If today's video gave you something useful, consider subscribing for more practical, evidence-informed health content, and I'll see you in the next one.